Pac-Man for Nintendo Entertainment System (NES) is a conversion of the famous 1980 Namco arcade, published in 1984 for the home market. This version maintains key elements of the original game, although it has some technical limitations due to the hardware of the time, making it a simpler but still enjoyable title for players of the 8-bit era. The graphics of the NES game are in line with the system's capabilities, which uses a 54-color palette. Pac-Man and the Ghosts are made with sprites that, while rudimentary by today's standards, clearly convey the gameplay action. The maze is a faithful reproduction, although less detailed, of the arcade one, with blocks and walls with sharp edges and contrasting colors to clearly distinguish the various elements. Each ghost has its own distinctive color: Blinky, red; Pinky, pink; Inky, blue; and Clyde, orange, although due to color limitations, colors may appear less defined than the original. The gameplay of Pac-Man for NES follows the same basic mechanics as coin-op. Players control Pac-Man in a maze with the goal of eating all the pellets while avoiding the 4 ghosts. Eating a power pellet temporarily reverses roles, allowing Pac-Man to devour ghosts for a short amount of time. Each completed level introduces increasing speeds for Pac-Man and the ghosts, progressively increasing the difficulty. However, compared to the arcade version, character movement is slightly jerkier and less fluid due to the rendering capabilities of the NES hardware. The artificial intelligence of the ghosts is also less sophisticated than in the original. While in the arcade each ghost follows a unique movement pattern, in the NES version such patterns are less evident, resulting in more random behavior. The sound sector is reduced compared to the arcade version, limited by the capabilities of the NES sound chip, RICO 2A03, which could only generate 5 audio channels. The typical sounds of the game, such as Pac-Man's Waka Waka as he eats pellets and the initial jingle, are present but less detailed than in the arcade. Despite the reduction in quality, the audio design manages to capture the essence of the original, maintaining the familiarity that made Pac-Man iconic. The NES has an 8-bit CPU and 2 kilobytes of RAM, which imposes limits on the number of sprites that can be displayed simultaneously and on the fluidity of gameplay. This leads to occasional slowdowns during the maze's busiest scenes. The maze itself is also slightly less defined than the arcade, and the edges of the sprites can appear more pixelated due to the lower resolution, 256 by 240, of the console. Despite these limitations, Pac-Man for the NES was well received, especially as one of the first ports of the game to a home platform. Its immediate playability and intuitive mechanics made it one of the most beloved titles in the NES catalog, although it was considered technically inferior to the arcade version. In summary, Pac-Man for NES represents a landmark in the history of home conversions of arcade games, despite its technical compromises. It's an example of how the essence of a great game can be preserved even in a limited hardware context.